life and beliefs of incels or involuntary celibates. So to start off, how many of you have heard of incels? No one? Alright. Well then hopefully I can inform you guys as to what they are by the end of this, but it's a bit of a weird one, so just bear with me. So as far as the history goes, it's pretty short, not too extensive history, because they kind of just, the term incels was kind of just brought about recently, and the group is pretty recent too. And as far as the way of life, it's kind of weird and looked down upon by many people, and their beliefs are pretty controversial as well. Alright, so for the history of incels, according to Vice News 2018, the term incels was actually first coined by a woman in Toronto in 1993, and it was just a shorter version of the word involuntary celibates, which basically means it's a group of guys that they are unable to like have sexual encounters with women because of, they blame women, their personality, and their appearance. So it was first brought up by that woman in Toronto, and since then men have kind of adopted the term and turned it into this group. And so they have different ways that they communicate with each other. So there's a website called Lookism, there's 4chan, there's Reddit, and then there's their official page, which is incels.me. But a little fun fact about them is that they had about 40,000 members on their subreddit, and about a year ago, actually, it got banned because of its hatred towards women and their talk about violence. And that's kind of where it was a little bit controversial. But now that you guys know a little bit about their history, I'm going to go ahead and talk about their way of life. So as far as their way of life goes, according to the Institute of Family Studies in 2018, they at first, the term incels kind of first got brought up because of a terrorist attack in Toronto that occurred. This guy, some of you guys might have seen it on the news, but this guy, he rammed his van into a crowd and killed 10 people. And after investigating a little bit about the guy, they were able to find out, based on his Facebook page, that he was part of this incel group. And so kind of just to elaborate on their way of life, because some of them do commit like massacres like this, but a lot of them just talk about it and are just kind of a little bit weird. But in the normal life of them, they pretty much isolate themselves, and they don't really get out in society. They like to just keep to themselves, so they'll spend a lot of times on their forums. They'll spend days at a time in their room, like on group calls with other incels, and they'll just talk about their anger and violence towards women and how they just kind of like hate their lives. And another example of an incel that was really popular, I think it was a year or two ago, you guys probably have heard of Elliot Rodger. This one kind of hits close to home. He went to UC Santa Barbara and he killed 6 people. And after the killing, they found this video online. It was kind of like a manifesto where he talks about his hatred towards women and how basically he did it because he was 22 years old at a university and he was still a virgin, and so he was just expressing his hatred towards women, calling them sluts, whores, a bunch of like pretty bad stuff like that. And it was also, they were able to find out that he was considered an incel too after looking at his social media. And so yeah, now that you guys know a little bit about their way of life, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the beliefs. And this is kind of where it gets a little bit weird. So they have this weird sort of cosmology where they have a male archetype they refer to as Chad. And Chad is basically the ideal male. He has the ideal looks, body, and personality. And he's able to pretty much get any girl he wants. He's able to have sex with any girl that he wants. And they kind of have this hatred towards Chad because they kind of believe that they're the opposite of this Chad figure, and that he gets all the girls. And so what's left is nothing and no one for these incels who kind of can't get any girls at all. And then they also have this female archetype called Stacy, which is pretty much the girl version of Chad. She's like the perfect girl, and she only goes after this Chad guy. And yeah, it's really strange. It's really weird. But yeah, they pretty much hate all women, and they especially hate this Chad type of dude because they're like the opposite of him. And so, yeah, so today I talked about the history, the way of life, and the beliefs of incels. And if you guys want to learn a little bit more about them, I found this short documentary on YouTube. This is what the life of an incel looks like. It's by Vice News, and that's kind of how I found this subculture. It's pretty interesting because it kind of it like interviews this guy who considers himself an incel, and it's pretty rare to be able to get like a one-on-one interview like this since they isolate themselves so much and they don't really like talking about it to other people that aren't incels. But yeah, if you guys want to look at this short documentary, it's actually really interesting. But yeah, thank you for your time.